Lost Generation coming back. One more stint on the stretch. The long journey on the Lost Generation project. We're all going to get found together. That's right. So what are we going to talk about tonight? We are going to talk about how everyone thinks that the government can fix everything. The ultimate, the pinnacle, the apex, the summit of slave think. The government can fix it all. The government can take care of it all. The government can arrange it all. How many times do we see some sort of tragedy or event, and the first thing that's said is, what new legislation will be passed to prevent this? As if the government has been able to prevent anything with legislation. How long has prostitution and drugs and crime and any crime been illegal? A lot of the stuff that is illegal is done not only by the masses but at the top as well. So if a whole system is corrupt, how are you going to stop that or prevent that from happening? There is no amount of laws that can prevent someone from getting unhinged and doing something crazy, doing something violent. You can't legislate violence, sadness, depression, or criminal tendencies out of anyone. You will never be able to get rid of firearms. You will never be able to get rid of drugs. You'll never be able to get rid of anything by passing legislation. And a lot of these issues could be remediated to some extent by us taking more responsibility for ourselves and collectively as communities taking more responsibility for our communities. We want to avoid taking responsibility, but we want everything to be perfect at the same time. It's never going to happen. It's never going to happen. I think of especially the neighborhoods where the violence happens, usually inner city neighborhoods that are primarily minorities. You are policed at a more extravagant rate because that's where the violence is. And a lot of times you don't do anything to stop the violence in those communities. You don't try to prevent it before it happens. You don't try to solve the crimes after they happen. I understand a lot of times it's out of fear, but if you want the violence to stop, you need to take a more active role in your children's life, number one. Number two, you need, unfortunately, to start snitching. It's the first time in my life I've ever encouraged people to snitch, but you as a community need to clean your community up. And that's just, I don't want to single anyone out here. There's a reason why white suburban communities are particularly hard hit with the opiate crisis. And parents in the communities have a lot to do with that as well. We need to start taking responsibility for our own families and our own communities. And that does not mean we need some type of socialist or communist system. It means we need to be able to look at our family and tell if we're doing enough to be a good parent. That means we need to look at our community and see if anyone's even bothering to interact on a community level, if there is any sense of community. So a lot of these places there isn't. And your white suburban kids, they get neglected all day and handed off to babysitters and daycares and told they're special and they're going to achieve great things, but are never once told how to go about achieving great things. And they feel like they're lost and they've been skipped over, and mommy cared about her career more than me, and those opiates are going to make them feel so good and numb all that out. That's why there's an opiate problem. In the inner city neighborhoods, a whole generation grew up watching their parents be destroyed by the crack epidemic. That's why a lot of people in the inner cities don't do drugs themselves, but they do sell drugs because they see that as one of the only ways out, one of the only ways to get money to support anything. But a lot of people have this crazy idea that the government can fix all these problems and the government can solve all these problems. I mean, look at what's happened with everything they've gotten involved in. The government has gotten involved in student loans. And look at it now. Look at how the price has skyrocketed. Absolutely. As soon as you have the government backing the loans, the colleges can charge more and more and more. Look what the governments have done with the automotive industry. A lot of that expense in your new vehicle is because of government regulation. And here's the thing. Let's talk about that. Because they will fine companies like Volkswagen for cheating on their emission standards. But at the same time, they banned the actually efficient motors that Volkswagen has on offer from the US. So look how bad they're screwing things up. Everything they touch gets screwed up. And the social welfare systems. I mean, look what happened with Obamacare. What a joke. What a joke. That was not to help the people. All it was to do was to benefit the insurance industry. And I can't understand the slave think of the government's got to step in and do something. You know, everyone says to call the police if something happens, and that violence never solves anything, and you're a cowboy if you want to defend yourself, your own property. But the police response time is too slow for a current crisis. Then when they get there, this is something almost no one seems to realize. When the police get to your house, they're not obligated to do anything for you. The police are not under obligation to enter your house and fix the problem for you. And you saw that in Florida with that mass shooting. The police didn't go into the school to stop the shooting. They don't have to. It's not their obligation to solve your problems for you. They just do sometimes. So people have come to believe that they do, but they don't have to put their lives in danger to save you. You need to start taking more responsibility for yourself. The government's not going to be able to save you from everything. Not going to be able to fix everything. The mass shootings. Everyone says, oh, when are we going to ban these guns? Banning the guns does not affect the cause. People can kill anyone they want with almost any implement they want. The real problem that we should be asking is, why are so many children becoming unhinged and going on murder sprees? And the reason we want to blame the guns is because it's an uncomfortable truth to look at ourselves collectively and say we are producing these unhinged murderers. They're coming out of our communities. They're coming out of our families. For every one of those shooters, I guarantee you there is some sad story behind them. And maybe it's not as big of a problem as they thought it was, but for every effect there is a cause, people, and it's not the guns. The guns have been around in America in vast numbers since the beginning. And the frequency of these types of crimes has increased in recent times. They've actually always existed. If you go back and you look at history, things like that have always happened, but the sheer amount of it happening now is what's growing. And it has nothing to do with the availability of firearms. It's just that since they're available, that's what they tend to use. But look at all the van attacks in Europe and the stabbing attacks in Asia. We need to look within ourselves and ask, why is this happening? And it's uncomfortable explanation for why it's happening, because a lot of parents are failing their kids, and a lot of families are failing their communities, and a lot of politicians, the very people that fail the most, and we're looking to them to come in and solve these problems for us. You have to be kidding me. Almost every problem that has caused the decay of the United States, in terms of power, geopolitical stance, finances, that has been the part of the government. And whether you believe the government works for you or does not, either way, it's a problem, a symptom of the sickness in our society. If we are a government of, for, and by the people, then these are the people that are produced by our society. And that's a sick testament to what's going on. So the whole government can fix it all thing. Okay, let's go over another one. So a minority group feels offended, and now the government is being lobbied to step in and make legislation to protect that group. For every group you protect, you're alienating another one. And you can't force someone's feelings about a certain topic or subject anyways. So legislation that's meant to fix these social problems, all they do is create another social problem. They create a rift elsewhere. So you can't legislate emotions, because that's really what someone's xenophobia or racism comes down to, is their fractured self and their emotions. Enough life experience will tell a reasonable person that color of the skin does not affect the quality of the person. It's so mysterious that people can't seem to figure out that quality of the person is affected by quality of the person. There's good and bad of every group and race. And the government is not going to fix the bad of every race. It's never going to happen like that. And the government can't fix humanitarian issues in other countries by waging undeclared wars on them. I can't believe people have ever demanded that we go to war to topple a leader, install a dictator, or stop supposed humanitarian crises the world over. Oh, Assad's going to gas his people. We need to get in there and do something about it. The government can't fix all these problems. And the government was never intended to fix all these problems. And the government shouldn't be intended to fix these problems. That is up to the people. But everyone likes to throw away their sovereignty, and everyone's scared of real freedom. Because real freedom means that you need to take account of things for yourself. And you need to look within, and you need to look at the society around you, your friends and family, and see what quality people they are and what they're actually doing. This all goes back to correspondence. As above, so below. As in the microcosm, so in the macrocosm. If you have hundreds of millions of people that are scared of real freedom and are scared to look in the mirror at the quality of their own being and person, you're going to have a government that is dysfunctional. And so, if you have a dysfunctional government, problems are going to be fixed with legislation. For every problem we attempt to fix, we create many more. It's absolutely absurd. It's egregious. It makes me sick. Lost. Let's get found together.